This is Speak the Speech, the podcast from Bell Shakespeare. Bell Shakespeare would like to acknowledge that this episode is recorded on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and we pay our respects to elders past and present.
I have had a most rare vision. I have had a dream, past the wit of man to say what dream it was. Man is but an ass if he go about to expound this dream. Methought I was, there is no man can tell what. Methought I was, and methought I had. But man is but a patched fool if he will offer to say what methought I had. The eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen. Man's hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report what my dream was.
Welcome to a very special edition of Speak the Speech, live from Bell Shakespeare. I'm James Evans, and I'm joined today by the artistic director of the company, Peter Evans. Peter, where are we? What is this?
Good evening, Jimmy. This is a player's set from last year. I can't even remember what play this one was.
I think it was all of them.
All of them. Mm-hmm. It's a player's set from all of them from last year. But we're in the rehearsal room.
Peter, I know you love Bottom, but we were talking earlier, you as a director, you're more a Peter Quince, you're not really a Bottom. What do you love about Bottom? What is it that appeals to you about this character?
Well, I think that's true. Not only am I not an actor, but if I was an actor, I'm definitely not Bottom. As you say, Peter Quince is more my speed. I'm more introverted, so maybe I love him because he's everything that I'm not.
Right.
He's an extraordinary. He has a confidence like almost no other character, and he's boots and all, and his confidence outweighs his talent, which I think is one of the most charming things about him.
Essential for an actor, perhaps. and it's switching around all those words, it's so beautiful. The eye of man hath not heard, and so on. Yeah. What do you make of that as a character?
I think it's kind of quintessentially Shakespearean. I mean, I think Shakespeare's actually referencing a biblical reference there. But in the mouth of Bottom, there's a kind of I think it's called synesthesia, where you mix up the senses. Right. But in a kind of classic Shakespeare way, yes, it's funny, but it's actually almost more effective because it's about incomprehension. It's about not being able to describe. And I think Shakespeare's brilliant at that. He's really good at using lots of words to describe how something is indescribable. If you think about Macbeth does something kind of similar. It's constantly trying to isolate in words what it is that he's feeling or he's thinking. Yeah. And I think the comedy sort of version of that is Bottom trying to put into words what this extraordinary thing that's happened, where effectively he's been king of the fairies for a night. I think that's one of the other charming things about Bottom, is that he just assumes that's fair enough too.
Yeah.
He doesn't, at no point does he it's like, well, okay, good. Yeah. I'm now king of the fairies.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But also for me, there's something quite moving about this speech. The way that there's already a nostalgia about it. Methought that I had and methought that I was. Now, usually when you see this moment, 9 times out of 10, the actor's kind of looking down his trousers saying, methought that I had, right? That's the obvious choice. Yeah. But I love that last time you directed this play, and I saw two different actors do it, Andrew Johnstone and Richard Piper. And both of them, methought I had, was more about a loss of love, that methought I was in love. I thought that I had the perfect life and love.
Yeah. Yeah, we had long talks about that, didn't we? There was lots of... Yeah, you're right. It's quite easy to go for the easy gag, when in fact I think it's much more beautiful. It's much more beautiful that it wasn't only an experience, but it was a feeling. And he's still got it. He retains that feeling, and he takes that feeling into the rest of the play, which I think is really... It's very beautiful. I find this play incredibly moving. I saw it when I was 19. It's my first memory of seeing this play. Maybe I'd seen it when I was even younger. But when I was 19, I saw it at the University of Auckland. I just got off the aeroplane from Christchurch. it must have been within the first week, they did it as their summer Shakespeare, and it's still one of the greatest productions I've ever seen. It was set on a massive skateboard ramp, and Oberon was right at the top of the skate, and the actors just screamed backwards and forwards, and the audience was in traverse, and it had such an effect on me. I'd never seen a Shakespeare so embodied by a group of young people before, and communicated, and people were just screaming with laughter. Like, it was just so charismatic, and I didn't get to direct it until 2013, but I'd been sitting on it for a long time, and I really, really loved it.
You know, Peter, 2020 has been unlike any other year for the entire world, of course, but particularly for the arts industry and for us here in Australia. How have you, as the leader of Bell Shakespeare, how have you weathered this storm this year?
Well, yeah, it's been kind of awful in a lot of respects, but there's also been some really wonderful things. So for us, when it happened, we were 2 weeks into Hamlet. Must have been in March when the Opera House was closed. And so to have to say goodbye to our crew and actors and our designers, and then it became apparent that we were going to have to cancel then Comedy of Errors as well, and it was our 30th anniversary, so there was quite a lot of activity we were going to do, and then John Bell's show. So there's been an awful lot of loss, which I have to admit I've been pretty flat on a lot of days, and quite anxious about our industry and about our colleagues and about a number of, so many people that we would normally employ. That I've found that very, very difficult. But within that, I've been amazed at people's generosity, at the amount of actors and designers and people who have kind of reached out to the company and to me personally to kind of see how we're going and see what's going on has been really, really moving. And then, of course, all our supporters and ticket holders, people have been so generous with the company and the kind of love for the company. Strangely, there has been a sort of celebration anyway, because so many people have reached out and supported us and really looked after us. So I've found there's been all sorts of silver linings. Within my flat days or my anxious days, just in terms of my own creativity, I've also been able to step back and kind of take a more macro look at my work and at the company's work. And I think that's been quite beneficial. I think that we started thinking about and developing things that perhaps we wouldn't have done if we were in a normal year.
Yeah, like what sorts of things? Well,
I've started looking at the history plays more seriously and a history cycle. We're maybe going to dip our toe into maybe doing a musical. Like, there's a few little things that have come up on the horizon that have always been there, but we've just had a bit more space and time to look at and to kind of think about. But the best thing about this company really is that at least half our work is education. So I think that, to use probably one of the most popular words of 2020, to pivot to education fully. And that's what I think we've all done. All of us within the company have kind of slightly altered our job descriptions and really focused on how we could support teachers and students. And so I think that's another silver lining, is that what we explored in the digital sphere, which was always something we wanted to explore maybe in 22, 23 when we got into Pier 2-3 and we had our own space. And in fact, we're sitting in an example of that, is that we've actually taken a piece of our rehearsal room, and our production team and our company management team and artistic team have kind of built this space in which we've been able to explore all sorts of ways of communicating with teachers and communicating with students. Most of which I think will continue even when the world's back to normal. And that was one of the things that we took on when in those early meetings. We said, let's make sure that we experiment, but whatever idea we do is not just about a pandemic universe. It needs to be about something that maybe we can continue or lead to another idea. And I think there's been a heap of those that I think has been really exciting. And in fact, I think if you just look at the pure numbers, we've reached more students this year than ever before. And what I like about that is that it's even more, the reach is even more egalitarian.
Yeah.
That was always John's wish, that it wasn't just about if you lived in a capital city.
Right.
That it was about getting that reach, and of course we've all had to consume more on our computers. But what that's meant is that everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's really exciting. A particular highlight for me this year has been the film festival.
Yes, the Student Film Festival.
Which actually was an idea that we were going to do anyway, but seemed to suddenly become something that was perfect for this year, to for students to film something on their phones, and it was bouncing off Shakespeare or a Shakespeare scene, but it meant that anyone could play.
Yeah.
It was absolutely for everyone, and we got 75 entries in our very first year, which was amazing. We opened it up to households. It wasn't just about schools, because we knew some people were locked down in various parts of Australia at various times. And so that to me, I found it very, very moving, and I found the quality of work really exciting, and I really like those things that we do that I imagine myself as a student, and the things that I would have absolutely gone mental for, and that is certainly one of them. And so that's something that I'm hoping is just going to grow and grow. I would love to see that become something that's really big into the future, because again, anyone can play. Anyone who's got access to a phone or an iPad or a camera of any kind can make something. So that was a particular highlight. And your podcast for me was a real highlight.
You like that?
I really like it, and I particularly like it because you and I weren't too sure about it.
We didn't know if it would work as an idea.
No, and did the world need another podcast? You and I were
a Shakespeare podcast.
A Shakespeare podcast. But luckily we had some of our colleagues who told us to pull our heads in and just give it a go. And I think it's fantastic. It's much better than I could have imagined it being. Yeah, and
the guests are so generous with their comments, and the interviews have been beautiful.
They're fantastic group of guests. But I mean, you're the perfect sort of host for it, because your knowledge is so good, and you're so generous, and you're always trying to give the clean feed to the guests to try and get the best stories out of them. But it has been wonderful, and I can see that being something that will be continuing into next year and on, because how do you think it should expand? So this year it's really been based on actors who have worked with the company over the journey. That was kind of the premise.
That's right. And look, I like the format being what it is, doing a speech at the beginning, talking about the speech, and then talking about the guest's life with Shakespeare. I think that's pretty unique format. I don't see that anywhere else in any other podcast. So I think it should continue. I think it should expand perhaps something a bit more international, looking at people who love Shakespeare all around the world. And that's another thing this pandemic has done, it's leveled the playing field. We've been teaching classes in China, in Europe. We've been in touch with our friends in America. And so, talking to people around the world about their experiences of Shakespeare in different parts of the world, I think might be a good way forward for it.
I think that would be great. I think that would be really good. Yeah, so it's been exciting, and then we actually did get on stage a little bit with the debates. We did one in Sydney. We're about to do one in Canberra in the next couple of weeks, and then we've got one planned for Melbourne. But obviously, we just pushed that into the start of next year just to make it easier for everybody. But that was the first time I was in a theatre since we shut down.
How did that feel, being in a theatre?
Well, it was pretty weird.
It's
pretty weird.
Sitting
there with the mask on, and we were all kind of distanced, but it was also kind of great. The debate was great. The audience was fantastic. It was a really good format, I think, and then of course we had lots of people tuning in on the computer, and the supporters we had in the room were really pleased to be out and about, and it was great. It was really good, and so again that idea was to do with the celebration, because we'd done them in the 90s, and it was about bringing that idea. But I can see us we'll definitely do Melbourne next year, but maybe that's a format we can do more of. I think it's super interesting, and people are very generous. Some really wonderful people to put their hands up.
And you get to pull apart the issues of the day, which look where we're living at the moment. So much to talk about.
Exactly.
But speaking of giving you a clean feed, Peter, let's talk about 2021, because we want to put 2020 behind us. All the lessons that we learned have been wonderful, and the things that we've done. But let's talk about getting back into the theatre. Theatre is a communal experience. We want to sit with a group of people and watch a live performance.
Yeah.
What are the opportunities in Bell Shakespeare to do that next year?
Well, we're gonna start the year by doing John's show, One Man in His Time, that we were planning on doing this year in August, and we're going to do that in March.
So there's an excerpt of it online, right?
That's right. So that was one of the other really great things we did, is that we partnered with the Opera House, and John just did 20 minutes. And we went into the Joan Sutherland Theatre. It was completely empty, and had the cameras set up and these lights. I hope that all of our friends and supporters have gone online and seen it, because I think it's amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Just John in the middle of the Joan Sutherland, just doing 20 minutes of this piece. I was lucky enough to be standing side of stage when he was doing it, and it's a real treat. Something that I think I'll never forget. Watching John do anything from The Tempest, I find very, very moving. He would hate that. He would hate me being sentimental, but it's my company now, so John, I'm going to be sentimental. I find it very, very beautiful. So that's got me even more excited, because when we programmed it, John and I had spoken, but we didn't really know what it was going to be. But now I think I know what it's going to be. Yeah. So that'll be, he'll do the full thing in the Playhouse in March.
And it's going to Canberra as well.
And we go to Canberra with it. That's right. And I think we'll go in the future. We'll go other places as well. But next year we'll do Sydney and Canberra. That's going to be a really beautiful night in the theatre, and so that continues our celebration. We're just going to unashamedly carry 30 years into 31, and just keep celebrating. So,
and John just turned 80 just the other day. Yeah,
he just turned 80. Yeah. That's right, at the start of the week. So. He does he likes symmetry and numbers. He does, but he has agreed to do it even in his 81st year and in the company's 31st year. I think it's going to be really special.
And then for the main production in the middle of the year.
So the main production is, again, the silver lining was that we got to open Hamlet, but we only played 2 weeks. And actually, I feel very fortunate about that. Is that we got to know what it was, and we had an incredibly positive response to it, and people were really excited, enthusiastic about it, and Harriet really knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely,
and so we're going to do that production in Sydney, Melbourne, and Canberra. In the middle of the year. So I'm very excited to be able to get the band back together and to explore that production.
So how will rehearsals be different? Usually, you're building a show from scratch, and then suddenly you're in Tech Week, and then it's on.
Yeah.
Now you've opened the show already. Yeah. So what opportunities does that give you?
It's so great.
Yeah.
It's so great, because I reckon about 60% of rehearsals is kind of managing your anxiety.
Yeah, that's right. Getting to week 3 and going, I don't know what this is.
This is terrible. What are we doing? Yeah. And I'm sure it's the same for the actors as it is for the director. And you spend every day just going, just be in the moment, just be here. But you do have a lot of anxiety and a lot of is this a good idea? But now we get to go in, and it's like, no, it works. I know the production works. I'm very, very proud of it. And so we can just go deeper. And I think for Harriet too, and for all the actors, there's just a sense that we know that we've got something. We know it's communicating. We get another chance at this most astonishing of plays. I remember Harriet saying, when we had a kind of farewell on the final day, we got together in the office with everybody in the office and just had a kind of morning tea and said goodbye. And she's like, a kind of a 12-week gig or something is now a 24-week gig. Like she automatically was onto the positive side that we will get to do it.
Yes.
I mean, are you looking forward to coming back in Horatio?
I really am. Yeah, having let it kind of cook and percolate for all that time. Yeah. I think we'll go much deeper with our relationships with the characters on stage. I think it'll be a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's going to be good.
Great. So Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra for Hamlet.
For Hamlet, that's
and
right.
And then the big national tour, 26 venues, Peter.
That's right, 26 venues. So this is if you hadn't guessed, that's why I was reading a bit from Midsummer Night's Dream, because we're going to do that. So you and I did this production in 2013 as an education show. Yeah. I joined the company full-time only a couple of years before, and I thought, I really think I should be across all aspects of the company, and the show we do specifically for students in the Opera House, the 90-minute 8-person Shakespeare's. I put my hand up and I thought, let's do this. And we did Midsummer Night's Dream, and it worked out really well. We were very proud of it. It was a terrific production. We then did it in Melbourne and Canberra in about 2014, so about 6 or 7 years ago now. But I've always been wanting to redo it and take it everywhere, go all around the country, take it back to Melbourne and Canberra, but also take it to another 24 venues around the country. Rethink it a bit, new cast, you know, have another kind of crack at it. And so that's going to be the big national tour, and I'm really excited about it. You know, it's kind of 90 minutes, really nice length. Kind of family friendly, although it's not a production I think that panders. I think it has got darkness in it, and it's got a kind of deep truth in it. But it's such a beautiful play, I think, for families and for people of all ages.
And rigorous on the movement side of things as well. Nigel Poulton will be back as movement director.
That's right. Yes. Back then we were even more staunch when we were first taking on all this kind of Meyerhold stuff. It was good, wasn't it? That's right. Because the beauty about the 8 people is that Midsummer Night's Dreams is really that, and The Tempest are the only kind of Shakespeare play like that, where you've got these 3 storylines that weave together. It's structurally just a work of genius, I think. But it means that the actors double and sometimes treble, whether that's as fairies or at various roles. And this is a really this production really exploits that. It is a real celebration of the theatre and of acting.
Yeah, that's right. And everyone thinks they know Midsummer Night's Dream, and everyone's seen kind of the production in the park and so on. But this is a really kind of compact night in the theatre, isn't it? It's 90 to 100 minutes. It is just 8 actors. We've edited the text right down just to get to the heart of the play.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why it kind of worked. I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, I thought I knew that play really well. Thought I'd seen that play." But in fact, when it gets boiled down like that it's I think it's really focused, and that really kind of releases the energy in it. I still think it's one of Shakespeare's best plays. It's a very early play of Shakespeare's, but I think it's one of his best and most complete. And I certainly think in the way that it celebrates the theatre. I mean, the whole thing is a celebration of theatre, but of course the play within the play at the end, with Bottom taking the lead role in Pyramus and Thisbe, I still think it's some of the funniest stuff in the theatre is in that play.
No doubt about it.
And is generous, and I find it very, very moving, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and a joyful celebration of being human and being in love, and also a wonderful way of parodying his own work. I mean, it looks like he was writing Romeo and Juliet around the same time, and it looks like a straight parody of Romeo and Juliet.
I think it has to be, and I know we don't know for sure, but I've got to think he did Romeo and Juliet first, and that the audience had seen Romeo and Juliet, and then they came back the next Wednesday and they saw Midsummer Night's Dream, where they were kind of doing a parody of this, one of the sources of Romeo and Juliet. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Brilliant.
So to that end, there's a couple of other little small things we're doing. Is that we're doing this thing called Play in a Day. It's something we've been planning for a long, long time. But one of our greatest supporters, Charles Littrell, who's just been, and I thank you, Charles, you've been banging on me about this for years. Thank you for your perseverance. It was something that, again, we wanted to do in Pier 2-3, but we brought forward where we just get a group of actors in a room for one day. And then at the end of that day, they read it for our audience, just in the rehearsal room, just with scripts in hand. And that what Charles was after, and I guess what I think is great, is just kind of reading things that you probably wouldn't program. Some kind of lesser-known work that you wouldn't program.
Shakespeare's contemporaries, that sort of thing.
Shakespeare contemporary, that's right. And I think in the future, I'm not sure how it's going to evolve. It might evolve into moving out from that. It's certainly in the future, I'd like to do some lesser-known Shakespeare's and kind of open up the repertoire that way. But I went out to a couple of directors who I'm really interested in. So Priscilla Jackman is going to do The Revenge is Tragedy, which is a play I studied at university, but I haven't really looked at since. I think you had a look at it recently.
Yeah, I did it at uni as well, funnily enough.
Right. And you had a look recently, and you think it's a little more troubling than we remember it.
It is very troubling. Those Middleton plays are deeply misogynistic, and I'll be fascinated to see where Priscilla and Heather Fairburn, who's doing...
she's doing Women Beware Women.
Women Beware Women. Yeah. I'll be fascinated to see where they go with that, because the assumptions baked into those plays plays are so kind of
Yeah.
twisted in a way, and they're so gory and bloody, and everyone kind of puts on a mask and goes and stabs and poisons each other. So I'll be fascinated to see what they kind of pluck out of these old plays.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm really intrigued. So I'm really thrilled about that, and so we'll do that in the rehearsal room in the first half of the year. Hopefully we'll get a nice little audience along to that, and also be really great seeing actors just after one day kind of throwing themselves into it. I really love that.
Yeah.
I really love kind of getting that, being in the rehearsal room and seeing people just kind of winging it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really good. So it's exciting. 21's exciting. I just can't wait to get back in the theatre.
Cannot wait to get back in the theatre to have that live experience, really.
Yeah.
So, One Man in His Time, Hamlet back for Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Midsummer Night's Dream back for Sydney and Melbourne and national tour, and Play in a Day, plus all of the amazing education work continuing apace.
Yeah.
Peter, it sounds like a very exciting year.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you.